I've had a few ethereal tormentors along the way. When I was very little, a trio of faceless figures in black hooded robes would materialize in my bedroom and silently move in a procession from one side to the other. Sometimes they would stop beside my bed and stand there watching me all night. In hindsight, they were probably some sort of shadow projected by the headlights of passing cars, but they seemed real enough at the time. They only bothered me in the first house I lived in, and I haven't seen them since I was about 7 years old. Later on, I was occasionally visited by a pale, thin, faintly luminous female figure with large black eyes. She was always naked, but rather indistinct and inhuman in appearance. Most often, she would linger near the windows, whispering softly, but at times, she would lie down against me in the bed and run her fingers along my throat. I had the most terrifying feeling of suffocation and impending death whenever she touched me. Usually, her visits lasted a few minutes, after which she would fade away. Not so sure of the explanation for this one, other than maybe a recurring hallucination. It's been about 4 years since I last saw her. In any case, if the hooded figures appeared, I wouldn't be particularly troubled. They seemed pretty bro-tier. Maybe offer them some whiskey if they were corporeal enough to drink it. If it was the pale naked thing, I don't know. I suspect she would be more arousing than terrifying to me now, and I would be tempted to follow Descartes' advice regarding giving her the dick. This Anon back again. A 4-year stretch without the pale luminous figure disturbing my sleep has officially come to an end. I woke up shortly before dawn, and I'm quite certain I saw her watching me from the corner of my room for a few seconds before melting away into the shadows. How does TG recommend I proceed if she becomes as frequent a nighttime visitor as she used to be? Also, fuck you guys. I'm convinced this thread is responsible for her finding me again. My sleep had been peaceful ever since I moved to my current apartment, but now the horrors know I'm here. Alright, it's hard to say exactly what her height is given I'm looking up at her from my bed, but I'd guess she's around 5'10" tall. She has an unnaturally thin and elongated body build, but definitely feminine. Narrow waist, small breasts, etc. You'd expect to see ribs sticking out given her emaciated build, but there are none visible. She does not appear to breathe. Her entire body is hairless, as is her head. Her skin is very pale, more like grayish white than normal human skin tone, and seems to emit a faint glowing luminescence. Not enough to cast light on objects around her, but enough that she is visible regardless of the light level in the room, and shadows are not cast on her. She is always naked and appears to be anatomically correct, so to speak, but the ethereal glow that surrounds her makes the details rather indistinct. It's almost like she looks out of focus. It's difficult to explain, but there's something decidedly non-sexual about her nudity, like it's just her nature. As far as her face is concerned, she seems entirely expressionless. Her eyes are about 50% larger than those of a normal person, and are entirely black. I've never seen her blink. Small mouth, always closed. Small or non-existent nose, though there is sort of a hint of nostrils. Again, her ethereal and indistinct nature makes details difficult to pick out. Fap as you wish, hedonist gentlemen. So, I've got a bunch of votes for trying to fuck my supernatural visitor, and a couple for trying to ward her off with /X fuckery. Anyone want to break the tie? What do /GG? Well, it's decided then. The next time she appears in my room, I will do everything in my power to make sweet love to whatever the hell she is. If I never post the results of this attempt, you'll know that either she has never reappeared or that you got me killed. Anon reporting in. Shortly after 2:30 AM, I awoke feeling a cool body lying against my right side. I was on my back and she was on her side facing towards me. I have no idea how long she had been there. I opened my eyes ever so slightly in order to see that it was my usual visitor, but otherwise feigned sleep, concerned at this point that I was in danger. A minute passed uneventfully, but then she moved a bit closer and put her lips against my neck. It wasn't quite a kiss, she just pressed her lips against my skin and lay perfectly motionless. I had the sense at the time that it was more like she was mimicking a kiss without really understanding the gesture. The duration of this was about 2 minutes, during which time I did not feel her inhale or exhale. At that point, I whispered, "Hello," and she drew back. I turned my head towards her for a better look at my visitor, but after a second or two, she vanished. Afterwards, I observed that the covers on the side of the bed that she had been lying on had been disturbed and thrown aside. Though I can't discount the possibility that I did that in my sleep. In this context, it would offer some evidence that my visitor takes on a corporeal form beyond my personal perception. Interestingly enough, unlike the instances in years past when she touched me, I didn't feel the awful suffocating sensation that made her visits so unpleasant. Whether this was due to a conscious choice on her part not to harm me, or because those previous symptoms were purely psychosomatic, I can't say. In any case, I am beginning to suspect that this will be a more difficult quest than I had initially thought. Though I don't appear to be in any particular danger of being killed, and she seems on some level to have perceived and responded to my amorous intent, I don't see how I will actually be able to have sex with my visitor, or even communicate with her, if she disappears as soon as she realizes I'm awake. Suggestions? Alright, turning up the heat a bit to sleep naked. Not sure if I have anything around suitable to leave as a gift. Do supernatural creatures like small uncut rubies? Shame it's winter, or I'd pick a flower in the yard and leave it on my other pillow. I've placed the ruby on a soaked handkerchief on top of the nightstand on the side of the bed my visitor appeared at last night. As for lube, I think I'll leave that issue for her to deal with if need be. As always, I will report in the morning if I'm still alive. Good night and good luck. Anon reporting in. My visitor returned as expected and remained for most of the night. Did not manage to fuck it, but progress towards that goal has definitely been made. It's only a matter of time now. I'm still alive, more or less, though prolonged physical contact with my visitor seems to have had some sort of deleterious effect on my health. Anyways, I need to try to get to my securities law class. I'll write up a more detailed report later, probably a little afternoon. Anon reporting in. As per your suggestions, I left a small ruby on the nightstand as an offered gift for my visitor. Slept nude and remained as passive as possible in order to see what she would do when left undisturbed. At 1:47 a.m., I was awoken by a faint whispering sound that had often accompanied my visitor in the past. I looked towards the source of the noise and saw that it was indeed my pale visitor, standing a few feet to the right of the bed, staring at me. As far as I could tell, there were no words or even a discernible rhythm or pattern to the whispers, just a continuous stream of soft atonal sound. I glanced at the clock and went back to sleep. Sometime later, I awoke to find my visitor lying to the right of me, facing me as she had the night before. Not sure of the time as I could not easily see the clock and did not want to move. She had one arm across my body and was tracing a fingertip along the various bones of my torso. Collarbone, sternum, along some ribs, hip bone, and so forth. Eventually, this gave way to a more general caress. Several times, her fingers briefly brushed over my penis, but she paid no particular attention to it. I got the general impression that her touch was more exploratory than sensual. A few minutes passed like this before she stopped moving and simply lay motionless at my side. Sometime thereafter, I drifted off to sleep once more. Later on, I awoke to find her lying more or less on top of me. It felt as though some time had passed, but judging by the darkness of the room, it was still several hours before dawn. She was motionless as usual and had her lips pressed to the base of my neck. I will say at this point that sleeping in the nude was a most excellent idea. The sensation of her cool, lithe body stretched out full length against me was distinctly enjoyable, though it is worth noting that she has no observable heartbeat. Feeling increasingly cold, I pulled the covers in close around us, and out of curiosity, I placed my left arm across her back, hugging her against me. For a moment, I could feel my visitor tense, and I feared that she might vanish as she had before. On the contrary, she relaxed and sort of writhed against me for a moment, before resuming her habitual stillness. Unfortunately, the feeling of cold remained unrelieved. If anything, it seemed to grow worse. And while I did my best to remain awake as long as possible, at some point about an hour later, I lost consciousness and did not wake again until morning. Rather worryingly, I found that there have been some lingering negative effects to her visit. I feel as if I haven't slept in a week. Complete and utter exhaustion in mind and body. I could barely keep my eyes open in class. Hell, just breathing is tiring, and I have this persistent feeling of cold. The thermostat says it's 75 degrees in here, but I might as well be sitting in the refrigerator. Also, though I didn't see her take it, the ruby is nowhere to be found. Gift accepted? Anyways, I'm starting to wonder if I made a mistake. I suppose it's too late to turn back now. Suggestions on how I proceed from here? Anon reporting in. I'm not sensing a lot of optimism about my odds here, and I must admit I'm feeling more than a little trepidation about the coming night. I am unfortunately more sober than I might wish, and feel as close to death's door as it did in the morning. I guess there's nothing for it but to see this through to the end. If luck is on my side, I'll have stories to tell in the morning, and if it is not, well, I suspect I'll have stories that I won't get to tell. Any advice before I head off to bed? It is my intention to proceed as I did last night and allow my visitor to do as she pleases. If I should die, let it be known that I went to my fate willingly in pursuit of knowledge and sensation. As always, I will endeavor to report my experience in the morning. If you have not heard anything from me by tomorrow afternoon, you will know what has happened. Good night and good luck, elegant gentlemen. It's been an honor. And thus Anon fell silent. Good night, sweet prince. Finally, in pursuit of giving her the dick, there is no sacrifice too great. Descartes, 22:6-21.